How's everyone doing? How's everyone doing? What the hell is going on? Okay, how's that? Is that better for everybody? Okay, how's that? Okay. Well, great start to the show. Boy, I gotta hang on a second. All right, how's that? How's that doing? All right, we are gonna go with that. All that testing, and we start like that. Anyways, so welcome to the show. Well, I had this prepared. Anyways, welcome to the show. I'm Justin. I'm going to be running it from here on out. This is the first show we're doing, so be aware there's going to be some things that aren't going to be very good necessarily, but we're going to figure that out as we go along. So today, it is August 2nd, and the NFL preseason starts tomorrow with the Cleveland Browns playing against the New York Jets at the Hall of Fame Stadium, because the NFL is doing their Hall of Fame stuff this week. We're not really going to get into all of that in terms of who's in the Hall of Fame this year. We might cover that next week, maybe the week after. But today, what we're really going to focus on is we're going to focus on the New York Jets. Because you could argue that the Jets had probably the biggest story of the offseason this year, especially when it comes to the Aaron Rodgers trade. So we're going to be talking about that. I'm also going to be going over some of my thoughts for what the Jets are going to do. And then we're also going to compare what happened. I'm bad at math. Back in 2008, when Brett Favre went to the New York Jets. So we're going to be looking at what he did at that time. And I'm going to give my thoughts on what I think Aaron Rodgers should be able to do as a Jet himself now. So we're going to jump straight into it. The first thing I want to talk about is what the Jets gave away in the offseason this year. This may not be everything that happened, but these are the big things, at least that I think. So first off, yes, you do have the Aaron Rodgers trade with the first round pick, the second round pick, the sixth round pick this year. And then there was the 2024 second round pick, which there's actually something on there that says if Aaron Rodgers plays 65% of snaps this year, that second round pick is going to become a first round pick. Obviously, all that went to the Packers because Aaron Rodgers coming in from Green Bay. And then the other big move that they had to give away was when they traded Elijah Moore to Cleveland, who supposedly, according to the news, is becoming one of Deshaun Watson's favorites at the moment. I don't know if that's the proper wording for it, but supposedly they're thinking Elijah Moore is going to be a threat in Cleveland. we'll see how that goes. I am not super high on Elijah Moore. Decent player, but I don't think he's really a standout guy. If anything, I would compare him more to like Donovan Peoples-Jones, which the Browns have already had. And still have, I should say. So that's what the Jets gave up. Some things that they got from free agency from the offseason this year. They brought in Chuck Clark from the Ravens. We're going to briefly touch on that. I already mentioned, obviously, they got Aaron Rodgers. And then from that Elijah Moore trade, they managed to get a second-round pick for him. And I believe these were trades made in the draft, but they got the 15th pick because they traded back, and I think they also got a 5th-round pick. I want to say that was in the draft. Free agency-wise, they brought in wide receiver Randall Cobb, and they also brought in Malik Hall. I almost said Hill. Malik Hall, linebacker. We're going to briefly touch on Malik Hall. I'm going to give my thoughts on Randall Cobb later on in the show. But then in the draft, with that 15th overall pick that they traded back for, they drafted an edge rusher, Will McDonald, who we're going to look at from his college days. So that's a quick little recap on how the Jets' offseason went. I know I'm missing a lot of information here, but I'm also trying to cater this to like the casual sports fan who really doesn't want to listen to every little detail. But I still want to provide enough information for them. So if there's a lot of information, just keep in mind this is meant for the casual sports audience. Let's see. So let's talk about some of these players. We're going to start with Chuck Clark. I know people are going to want to hear about Aaron Rodgers this, Aaron Rodgers that. Randall Cobb's here now. Let's talk about him. No, we are not doing that yet. We are not doing that yet. Let's see. Chuck Clark. Wait, I'm in college football. God damn it. So I'm using the sportsreference.com, and I completely went to the wrong section. Chuck Clark. Let's try this again. Alright, so let's see. So Chuck Clark came in from the Ravens. And actually, what I'm going to do for you watching this at work, Zach, shut up. Anyways, yeah, I can see your chats in there. That's the wrong button. So here's what we're going to do. Let's show you guys. That is not what you're supposed to be looking at. Man, all this testing and this is what we get. There we go. All right. So we're looking at Chuck Clark's stats right now. Let me, that was actually cool. Yeah, I know. I did, not a ton of work on that. All right, so we're going to blow this up for you guys here. So, let's see. So Chuck Clark is a free safety. Didn't I just say he was a linebacker? Defensive back. Duh. Sorry. All right. Oh, this is going to be fun. All right. Jesus. Anyway, so he was drafted in the 6th round in 2017 to Baltimore. Where are his stats? Let's take a look at his stats. Where are his fucking stats? On this page. Defensive and fumbles. Let's look at that. So, I don't ever recall if Chuck Clark was the starter necessarily, but I know he's certainly a decent player. Not someone I would consider to be a game changer per se. Actually, yeah, it looks like he was a starter. Cool. Let's see. So some important stats to note here. Defensive back, he's not going to get a ton of interceptions because he's trying to defend the deep ball. I apologize if that's very hard to see. Let's see what I can do for you guys here. There you go. Does that look better? Let's see if that looks better for you guys. So, yeah, interceptions. He's only got like 5 in his career, but again, he's not played for very, very long. Actually, I want to do. Okay, whatever. So he's only had 5 interceptions in his career, but again, defensive back. Video quality is good. Thank you, Zach. I appreciate you. You're still a bitch, but I appreciate you. You gotta love it when your best friends come in to mess with your chats. Alright, so he's got 5 interceptions. Again, as a defensive back, you're not going to see a ton of that because his main goal is really just defend those deep passes. Although he does have a touchdown. I believe, was that a pick 6? I remember it happening. I just don't remember how he got it. He actually has a couple of sacks on his career. He does have quite a bit of tackles, which is good. But yeah, I mean, when you look at his stats, you're not getting a game-changing player necessarily, but you are getting someone that you can certainly rely on. He's going to be pretty consistent. So again, I'm not expecting him to be a game changer, but definitely someone that you want to keep an eye on. The next person I want to talk about is Malik Hall. So let me Malik Hall. I completely misspelled his name. Okay, let's find this. Copy that. Bear with me a second, guys. No? Hang on, I gotta find this dude's name now. Malik Hall. Football. Jets. MAA. Okay, well, apparently I can't seem to find him on this site. Could have sworn I was just looking at him. But anyways, let's see, where are his stats here, career. Okay, New York Jets, your website absolutely sucks. I'm just going to say that now. Let's try this. Let's just go straight to the Jets page here. And let's see, where's their roster? Lineups. Okay, I think we're going to have to come back to Malik Hall because I'm not finding all the stuff that I had on him before. So we are going to circle back to that a little bit later on. In the meantime, let's see, we talked about Chuck Clark. Again, I'm going to come back to Randall Cobb, but then that just leaves us with Will McDonald. So he was college coming in. So let's go Will McDonald. Donald, edge rusher. There we go. All right, let's take a look at that. Their college page is not as good as their NFL page, but there's only so much you can do about that. So coming out of Iowa State, playing in the Big 12. Which, speaking of the Big 12, I want to know what people's thoughts are with Colorado moving back. And wasn't it Arizona that was rumored for something related to that also? Anyways, so yeah, Malik Hall. Let's take a look at. So yeah, he had 80 tackles in college, 24 tackles in 2021, 23 and 22. That's a good way to go out, I'll tell you that much. What is this thing doing? All right. Yeah, that's a good way to go out. Let's see his sacks. 11 sacks in 2021, so gotta love that. Only 5 sacks in 2022, but again, when you're putting up 34 stats in college, that's pretty good. I'll give him credit there. As an edge rusher, probably is not going to get interceptions. I'll probably finish with like 5 in his NFL career, most likely. I don't know. I'm just throwing numbers out there. Now, this is the big one. 10 forced fumbles in his career. About 5 in 2021. So, if he can do this in the NFL, I feel like if he can get 7 in a season, because very clearly he can get 5. Okay, let's dial it back. I'm going to say if he can get like 3 or 4 in a season, we may be looking at one of the next big names in the NFL. Obviously, being picked 15th overall, you are one of the bigger names at the moment. But the thing is, he needs to continue with that production. What the hell is with my lighting right now? But yeah, he needs to continue with this production. Having 125 tackles in college is really, really good. And, 35, 36 tackles 3 years straight. How could you not love seeing that? And then, like I said, the 11 sacks in that single season. Yeah, that's absolutely incredible to see. Very good stuff for a rookie coming into the NFL. So hopefully, for the Jets' sake, he'll be able to keep up that production. Let's see. I don't have any footage for Will McDonald. I might get some as the season goes along, but I'm not really discussing college football on this channel right now. We may in the future, but for right now, we're just going to stick with the NFL. All right, so like I said, we're going to come back to Malik Hall as I try to figure out what the hell is going on there. But I think what we're going to do, let's briefly discuss Aaron Rodgers real quick. Let's see. So with Aaron Rodgers, we already know the player. All right, we already know this. Now, the thing to remember is that coming out of Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers did have some very elite production, but at the same time, he also was kind of going down 2022. Still a very good year, but not like the last couple years, which you'll see in a minute as we discuss this further. But I want to know what people think of Aaron Rodgers as a football player. So I am going to be reading comments after the show is done throughout the week and see what everybody's thoughts are. My lights are going down. Shit, I gotta figure that out. They were working fine in testing. But I want to know, do you think the Jets are going to get the MVP Aaron Rodgers? Are they going to get the Aaron Rodgers that chokes in the playoffs? Or are they just going to get Aaron Rodgers who's just there, not really making a difference, but is just kind of there? So I'm going to be looking at that throughout the week, see what people think. And then I might read some of those comments on next week's show. So what we're going to do, I've put together a video of Aaron Rodgers. I've put together a video of the last handful of years in Green Bay. Again, it's going to be missing a lot of information, but this is all catering to the casual fans. This is going to be a quick recap of Aaron Rodgers, and then I've also mentioned some of the other offensive players just to put the perspective of how the team was performing, and then maybe you can start getting the idea in your head of what was going through Rodgers' mind, because we all know he was getting upset with Packers management over the past few years, and I think with the video that's been put together, with all the stats that you're going to see throughout this video, you're going to see that the offense was producing at a very high and a very elite level, but they just couldn't get the job done. So I'm hoping that's going to be enough for you guys. So I'm going to step aside. I'm going to make sure this video is going, and I will check back in with you guys afterwards. Let me just get this going real quick. Alright, I will see you guys in a little bit. The year is 2018. Packers veteran wide receiver Jordy Nelson had been cut from the team. To be fair, he was in his mid-30s heading into the season, and the Packers had just missed the playoffs after finishing 7-9 in 2017. Green Bay would finish 2018 with a 6-9-1 record, and head coach Mike McCarthy would be fired after a 4-7-1 start. The tie came in Week 2 against the Minnesota Vikings.
It again! And we'll end this crazy game in a tie. Oh my goodness.
The beginning of the 2019 offseason saw the departure of Randall Cobb to the Dallas Cowboys. This was the Cowboys team that had Ezekiel Elliott and Amari Cooper. In typical Cowboys fashion, they went 8-8 and missed the playoffs. Green Bay was led by their new head coach Matt LaFleur. Aaron Rodgers would throw for 26 touchdowns, have 62% completions, and 4,002 yards this season, with nearly 1,000 of those being caught by Davante Adams, who would also catch an unbelievable 5 touchdowns the entire season. Aaron Jones would rush for over 1,000 yards for the second time in his young career, picking up 16 touchdowns on the ground. The Packers would finish the 2019 season with a 13-3 record, earning the top seed in the NFC, including a 34-24 victory against the Cowboys in Week 5. They would go on to lose the NFC Championship to a 49ers squad playing in over their heads, led by Jimmy Garoppolo. The Niners would lose to Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs in Super Bowl 54. This is where I believe the end of the Green Bay Rodgers era began. After being upset in a way not seen since the Giants beat the Patriots in Super Bowl 42, the Packers would fail to sign a top wide receiver in the offseason. A player like Aaron Rodgers needs receivers who can extend the play and get about 2 to 3 touchdowns per game. Not to worry though, Green Bay would strike gold in the draft.
With the 26th pick in the 2020 NFL Draft, the Green Bay Packers select Jordan Love, quarterback, Utah State.
The Packers had the 26th pick after trading up from 30th with Miami, meaning they missed out on the likes of CeeDee Lamb, who was drafted by the Cowboys, and Justin Jefferson, who was drafted by the Vikings. The Packers would take the league by storm in 2020, making nearly every other team their bitch. Aaron Rodgers would win his 3rd MVP award, throwing for 4,299 yards and 48 touchdowns. His completion percentage shot up to over 70%. The rushing attack was once again led by Aaron Jones, who would rush for over 1,100 yards and 9 touchdowns. The receiving game was led by Davante Adams with 1,374 yards and 18 touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb would finish the season with 935 yards and Justin Jefferson with 1,400. Green Bay was arguably a top 5 team, and they would be rewarded by the football gods with an NFC Championship loss to the bullshit that was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the team with Tom Brady and Antonio fucking Brown. Aaron Rodgers is pissed. Enter 2021. The Packers once again failed to bring in wide receivers during the offseason. They did, however, bring back Randall Cobb via trade with the Texans. Randall Cobb hasn't had 1,000 yards since 2014. The Packers would finish 13-4, with Rodgers throwing for 4,115 yards and 37 touchdowns, completing nearly 70% of his passes, earning MVP once again. Aaron Jones would only rush for 799 yards and 4 touchdowns, while a young A.J. Dillon would rush for over 800 yards and 5 touchdowns. The receiving game was led by Davante Adams with 1,553 yards and 11 touchdowns. Randall Cobb had a pathetic 375 yards and 5 touchdowns. I mourn for those who had him on their fantasy teams. This team would be rewarded by losing in the divisional round to the 49ers.
Kick was down the middle and good! 49ers win it!
In 2022, the Packers would trade Davante Adams to the Raiders, a move that still makes 0 sense today. Rodgers would only throw for 3,695 yards, 26 touchdowns, and complete 64.6% of his passes. Aaron Jones, however, would bounce back to rush for over 1,100 yards, but would only tally 2 touchdowns on the year. A.J. Dillon would only rush for 770 yards, but he would improve to 7 touchdowns. No receiver would come close to 1,000 yards, while Davante Adams would have over 1,500 yards with the Raiders. Green Bay would miss the playoffs in 2022 after finishing the season with an 8-9 record. Aaron Rodgers is fucking pissed. All right, so that was my little video that I put together for the last handful of years with Rodgers being in Green Bay. So I'm hoping that you can see where Rodgers starts getting frustrated, because with all of that offensive production, they could not come close to getting the job done. Of course, Rodgers only has one Super Bowl win. Why am I blanking on what year that was? But anyways, yeah, he's only got that one Super Bowl win in Green Bay, which kind of leads into what we're going to be discussing next. And if you know much about the Packers, you kind of know where this is going. So we're going to briefly touch on Brett Favre. I know that sounds a little odd, but there's a reason we're doing this. So if you take a look here, we're going to see what Brett Favre is looking like. I highlighted this section, well, all this section, I should say, because this is all Brett Favre stuff from when he was playing in Green Bay from 92 all the way to 2007. And then I've also highlighted 2008 from when he played on the New York Jets. We're going to really put a lot of focus on this year in particular with the Jets. But yeah, just to see how incredible of a player Brett Favre was. And actually, let me pull up some Aaron Rodgers numbers here. Aaron Rodgers has very, very similar numbers. Aaron Rodgers, yes. So, yeah, you can see very, very similar. Both franchise players, there's no question about it. They will both go down as some of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game. But anyways, let's go back to Favre. I probably need to highlight all this again for you. So, there and there. Why is that not highlighting? Whatever. All right, so yeah, you can look at some of his stats there. So, let's talk more about Brett Favre from when he actually went to the Jets. That 1 year he was with the Jets in 2008, he was able to throw for 3,472 yards, 22 touchdowns, and he completed over 65% of his passes. The Jets overall in 2008, they were led on the ground by running back Thomas Jones, who ended up having 1,312 yards and 13 touchdowns. Now, this dude's got an odd name. I believe it was, what was his name? Lysandris Coles. Again, I'm probably mispronouncing his name like a motherfucker. But Mr. Coles, wide receiver, he had 850 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns. And there was another receiver, Jericho Cotry, who was able to get 858 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. So those were the two big names in the receiving game. The team overall in 2008, they finished 9-7, but they missed the playoffs, unfortunately. So this is where we're going to discuss what I think Rodgers should be able to do realistically, comparing him to Brett Favre with the Jets. So what do I think Rodgers can do to even compare to Brett Favre? Well, I think the biggest thing would be start with getting 9 wins. If he can get 9 wins, then that keeps the Jets possibly in playoff contention. And that's really the biggest thing for New York right now is getting to the playoffs. The next thing, so the Jets in 2008 were able to go off on a 5-game winning streak. It's probably going to be tougher for Rodgers to pull this off, but I think if he can get 5 games straight with victories, then again, I think you'll have a much better comparison to Brett Favre. And again, this is all just comparison's sake because we're really trying to draw some parallels with what we're seeing. The next thing would be throw for 3,600 yards. We know Rodgers can do this. He's thrown for 4,000 yards. I covered that in the video just now. But the other thing he has to do, complete 65% of his passes. So he's got to get all those yards through the air. He's got to complete these passes. He's got to get those 5 games straight. Maybe not the 5 games straight, but I think it would be very impressive if he can do that, knowing that Brett Favre was able to do this over a decade ago. And then I also think that the 9 wins is very realistic. Let's be honest here. And then, as I mentioned before, the biggest thing as a team is to just make the playoffs. That's the biggest thing. It doesn't matter if they make it with a wild card spot or if they win the goddamn conference. All they got to do is make the playoffs, and they give themselves a chance to win the Super Bowl. And I know there's arguments that the wild card really doesn't mean anything. They should do rid with the wild card. Yawn. I don't care. If they can get at least, the 7th seed now, because the NFL changed it a couple years ago. If they can at least get a wild card spot, then they've completed all their goals that I'm setting for them. I'm sure they have goals of winning the Super Bowl, but they will have met my expectations if they can make the playoffs. So that's pretty much all I have today. I know it was pretty fast, but I'm trying to get a lot of information to the casual fans. That's really my biggest thing, is getting that audience going. So as the weeks go on in this preseason, I was not able to find my previous notes on Malik Hall. I don't know what I did with them. But anyways, I was also going to talk about Randall Cobb. So, Randall Cobb, who I mentioned, has not had 1,000 yards receiving since 2014. I get that he's buddy-buddy with Aaron Rodgers, but if you're trying to build a contender, I don't think Randall Cobb is the guy you want to rely on. I understand that he had a good year in Dallas when he had 800-something yards, but that's 1 year out of, 5 or 6 years since he's had 1,000 yards, whenever that was. But I don't think Randall Cobb is going to be a difference maker. I don't even think you're really going to hear from him other than the media, because we know the media is going to talk about this. And actually, the last thing was actually Aaron Rodgers winning MVP. Because let's be honest, with all this attention that he's getting, if he can perform like I said he should, throwing for 3,600 yards and 65%, I'm not even going to get into how many touchdowns he can throw. That just depends on the team's game plan. But I feel like with all the attention that the Jets are going to get this year, if Aaron Rodgers can pull a decent year, not even an elite year, just pull a good year, he might win MVP, but I'm sure there's going to be other players that are going to be more deserving of it that aren't going to win it because it's Aaron Rodgers and he's a football god. So anyways, yeah, that's all I had today. Like I said, I know this was pretty quick, a lot of information at once. But next week, I'm going to talk more about some of the other bigger stories in the NFL this year. This was really just focused on the Jets and Aaron Rodgers just to get everything going. Let's see, the game tomorrow, I want to say is on at 8 something. Let me double check this. Let's see, this game tomorrow starts at 8 o'clock. So, start of the preseason. I would be surprised if either team puts any of their starters out. But I know I'm going to be watching it. It's supposed to be on NBC tomorrow. So, good luck to both teams. And I will look forward to seeing you guys next week. This has been a lot of fun doing this. I'm hoping we can continue in the future. And yeah, hopefully I will see you all next week. All right, guys, have a good one.